Welcome to Marvel Vision, a podcast about Marvel, the MCU, and right now, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I'm Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And we have a special guest this episode, journalist,
Woohoo!
Author, all-around good guy, Richard Newby. Thank you so much for joining the podcast.
All-around good guy.
All-around good guy.
Always great to meet a good guy.
Thank you guys for having me.
Oh my gosh, we're excited to chat. Now, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, let's start off with this. Do you have any memories of the first time you saw it, where your feeling was when it came in the MCU? Obviously, this is like mid-late Phase 3, I guess. Probably should have checked this beforehand. But what were your general impressions the first time you saw this movie, Richard?
I mean, I was super excited going into it. The first one was, one of my favorite MCU movies at the time. And so, I had gone through and watched everything that James Gunn had did since, I had seen Slither before the first one came out. But then I ended up watching, Super and some of the other stuff that he'd worked on and written. So yeah, the first one made me a big James Gunn fan. So I was really excited going into this one. And I immediately loved it when I came out of it. The year that it came out about a year after my father-in-law had passed away. So just this film dealing with dads and not only just with Peter's complicated relationship with Ego, but also Yondu, that moment with Yondu at the end and the funeral and the fireworks. I mean that really got me. It was a really emotional experience, and I saw it with my wife too. And so she was crying, and so it's always been kind of this I think special movie for us that kind of helped us process that grief.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing. And a little late for this, but just to mention, spoiler warning here, we're obviously going to get into the movie. I assume everybody has already watched it, but if you haven't...
Spoiler on Richard's life as well, we're talking about Richard's life here.
But the movie, just to mention, was released originally May 5th, 2017, written and directed by James Gunn. It is a direct sequel to Guardians of the Galaxy, taking place a couple of months later, I think, and he's talked about this since... But there are a couple of very, very minor continuity things where just in terms of the time that it came out physically in our world doesn't quite match up to the place it is in the MCU, but I think it works anyway. For you guys watching it again, or Justin, we were talking about this before you got on, I think you liked it better this time, right?
Yeah, better on the rewatch. I remember watching it the first time, and I sort of felt I think it was a lot of the Ego was portrayed in such a way that felt different, and I don't know, it's hard to remember exactly why I felt this one I didn't like this as much as the first one, but on rewatching it just today, I enjoyed it way more, and I don't know why. I don't know why.
Well, you're in a different place, sometimes movies just hit you differently depending on where you are in life. So,
I guess I guess I am more Groot now.
Yeah, you are. I would say so.
I'm increasingly Groot.
Mm-hmm.
Pete, what about you?
Yeah, I also, I was, when the first time I saw it, I was disappointed because I had high hopes for Kurt Russell and Ego and where it was going to go and the whole dad thing. So I was pretty sad that he was yeah, your mother really didn't mean that much to me, and it was tough putting that brain tumor in her, and just Quill's rage, I immediately would kind of understood and was oh man. So I was kind of disappointed, but then the rewatch again, I enjoyed it more the second time going around, where I knew what was going on, and also the Yondu stuff hit me, got me choked up this time, the second time around for sure. And I forgot how much I loved his funeral send off. I was the first time around, it was definitely amazing, but the second time around, the funeral was just so beautiful and so moving. It was really well done.
The big difference for me from the first time I saw it to now, and I think I've actually seen it a couple of times since, but I was very thrown by the more aggressive humor, particularly in the first half of the movie or so. Like, there's a lot of everybody yelling at each other and digging into each other.
That's what families are, man.
That's what families are, and I get that. But particularly, there's something in terms of the moderation of the humor of Drax in this movie, where he's very aggressive. He's always doing that very big Dave Bautista ha 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 laugh that's just very sharp and off-putting. Oh, thank you very much.
Really?
Was that good?
Getting it.
Can I take it?
Pretty...
I could do a cameo or something or whatever you want.
What do you mean by cameo? You mean
the
like
thing where people
someone pays you?
do? Yeah,
someone pays you
like
to do
real Dave Bautista.
Just so maybe you haven't been on the site much. They usually pay the celebrities to do that.
No, I
they don't pay.
I can get like a couple $100 or something.
You're going to try to launch a fake account?
Yeah, I'll just wear
this
like
really got off the rails fast.
It definitely did. My point being though that there's a lot of that humor where everybody's really yelling at each other and digging into each other in a very angry way towards the beginning of the movie. But watching this time, knowing that's where it started and knowing that I'm very off put by that, they eventually do get to a place in some of the relationships. I was really trying to focus on the ones that work, and some of the things that really, really do work in this movie that aren't quite as sharp and mean, I think, are like the Yondu and Rocket relationship.
Oh my God.
Really wonderful throughout here.
Yeah.
And the whole thread of them figuring out, oh, we're actually exactly like each other and we want exactly the same things. Ending with that really bold choice of a last shot of having a raccoon crying on screen, and that's what you're leaving everybody with, is awesome. So I like that quite a bit.
And I mean, I feel like Drax just drives this whole movie. I'm rewatching it, like he is the sort of comedic engine of it. Like we get the fun stuff with Yondu and Rocket, and Groot. That whole montage I thought was really fun. But Drax's performance just like sort of owns the whole movie. I felt like rewatching.
So you like Drax in this movie?
I like Drax, yeah.
Interesting. Richard, where do you fall on the liking or not liking Drax?
I really like Drax. Yeah, I think he's really funny. I remember when this came out, there was like some pushback about like how meanly he treated Mantis, and I think Gunn has even like commented on like one of the things that he did in like the holiday special of bringing Drax and Mantis together was to kind of try to like mend that tension. And so you see Mantis kind of like give it back to Drax a little bit, and so she's less the butt of a joke, and they're kind of going at each other equally. So like I definitely like kind of remember that aspect, but I also felt like he was so funny in those moments, like even if it was like sometimes at the expense of Mantis. Like I feel like Drax's comedic timing in this movie is just it's killer.
It's pretty great.
Well, let's talk about Mantis then, because she's one of the big new additions in this movie. First of all, I think Pom Klementieff, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, is fantastic and so funny. And they let her get even goofier and weirder. One of my favorite things, this is later on, but in Infinity War, it's Infinity War when they're breaking into the collectors. Yes, Infinity War.
Yeah.
And she's just sort of like creeping in the background of shots. And then later when they go to Titan, and she's just using the low gravity to jump up and around everywhere. Hilarious little moments like that. But what do you think about her introduction here in this movie? Pete, how does that work for you?
Yeah, I liked it. I really liked how, like it starts off by Drax saying that she is ugly, and then kind of ends with, Drax saying that you are beautiful on the inside. So I think it's, it kind of comes back around a little bit. And I thought Mantis was fun. I mean, that whole thing about like, her being able to kind of read feelings, and then like, she reveals that Peter's in love with Gamora, and then Drax starts laughing at you. It's like, that's the most embarrassing thing ever. Do me next. It's just like such a fun energy of kind of calling out what's happening, but also excited to go next. I like the two of them together, and I also like how Mantis is kind of living not a great lifestyle, and then they show up and she's immediately kind of like, well, this guy's loud and fun. That's not usually what I get. So she was kind of like immediately kind of like drawn to that. So I thought it's a fun duo for sure.
Yeah, I think she Mantis takes on qualities of Drax, Drax as it feels like over the course of the movie, and then that's why them being buddied up in the holiday special felt like especially like fun, because they do seem like almost that they just connect and sort of feed off each other's energy.
Well, this is another thing that cropped up, and I think it's okay. I don't have a problem with this necessarily, but it certainly was a question that got raised in my mind while I was watching this. We had the big revelation in the holiday special that Mantis is Star-Lord's sister or half-sister, and Ego is her father, something that isn't established in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And in fact, what they delve into here is that Ego's whole thing is he went all over the galaxy to all of these different planets, had progeny, and then when they didn't turn out to have the celestial seed that he needed in order to spark his light, he killed them and left their skeletons in the middle of his planet. He ate them or whatever he did with them. Does that jibe with what we know about Mantis now? Does that revelation work when you go back and watch Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2? What do you guys think?
I think now he kept her around because she does other stuff. She didn't have the spark, but she seems to be a good right-hand person.
Alex, as you know, getting to sleep is hard, and if you can have somebody who can help you sleep, you're going to keep them around. I mean, that's a huge thing to be able to. You imagine how awesome it would just be like, all right, put me to sleep right now. You know what I mean? And you can just crash out.
If I just touched your head and you went to sleep?
Yeah. I mean,
I would like that power.
That would be
fun.
I
wish I could reach across to your Zoom box and just be like, sleep.
It's like those guys from Dark City. Sleep now. Right?
Again, another banger cameo impression, Alex. What are you doing? What are you up to?
Yeah, I should start two accounts. Dave Bautista laughs and the Dark City weird guys. There you go.
Gets good. Dark City, a lot of people just banging down the door.
That. I don't know what that reference is.
You got to check out Dark City, man. Richard, how do you feel about the Mantis revelation here in retrospect? Does it work for you?
Yeah. I think it works overall. I kind of like the idea that he, kept her around as a kind of like ally, and I like the family connection, that's established later. I think it works. Yeah.
Well, why don't we talk about Kurt Russell as Ego then? And I'm curious to hear from Pete, because you were saying you were upset about this. Were you upset about this because you liked Kurt Russell and then he was bad and that made you feel bad?
Well, yes, but also the fact that he turned out to be a shitty father. I watching it the first time was kind of filled with the hope that maybe Peter Quill was also filled with, of like, hey, maybe this guy is the long lost father I've always wanted. Maybe this is going to work out, and it all goes horribly wrong. And I just remember how crushing that was, that feeling. But yeah, I think that Kurt Russell, phenomenal actor, a lot of fun, but sad when he's got to play a bad guy or a piece of shit. It's not as much fun. So
in the planet.
It's I like him being the kind of anti-hero or the hero who is driving a giant truck and talking about all sorts of
or
stuff.
Or some sort of, like Roadhouse.
Or Pork Chop Express. I mean, we could go down a lot of different, of different stuff. I mean,
or tricking a woman into being his wife after she falls overboard. Any of those things.
Yeah, any of those things. Hey, I mean, they're happily married. Okay, so that worked. That meet cute worked. Okay, say what you will, but they're both happily in a relationship.
Have you ever thought that maybe Kurt Russell would come and be like, Pete, I'm your father?
No, I already got a dad. I don't need another one, but I appreciate what you're saying.
Well, let me throw this out at you. I didn't know this before I was prepping for this podcast, but apparently they wanted to and maybe even offered the role to Matthew McConaughey first.
Oh,
and
wow.
he turned it down for The Dark Tower, right? I believe.
It's true, yep.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Well, McConaughey? That would be so weird.
It's a gamble. I mean, they're both great comic book properties, I mean, it's
Dark Tower.
Book. Dark Tower is a book, first of all.
And it was a comic book too.
And then a comic book, yeah. Don't
Sure.
tell me it
Yeah,
wasn't a comic book. We
that's
fucking
true. All
talked
right,
about it
sorry.
on the show, motherfucker.
Oh my gosh! Wow, so angry.
Jesus Christ.
Yes, but that would have been a very different movie, I think. On that note, I think like the thing that works about Kurt Russell for me as Ego is exactly the thing that bummed you out, Pete, because Kurt Russell is such a likable guy.
Yeah.
He comes out there, you are rooting for it to work. There's that great scene where they're playing ball with the energy and everything, which is really fun. And
Yeah.
the thing that's, I think, so surprising and uh, I think well done is the turn is so quick here. Like everything is going right up until there's really just a maybe 4 or 5 minute chunk of the movie where suddenly Mantis is like, everything's wrong. I got to tell you what's actually going on. Nebula and Gamora discover the cave with the skeletons. And then Kurt Russell, Ego, is telling Star-Lord, he's like, oh yeah, and there were all these other women. And I'm just going to like kind of use you as a battery. We're going to take over the galaxy. It's all going to be us. Don't you love that? And it all happens very, very quickly, ending with the punch of, yeah, I really wish I hadn't given your mother that tumor, which drives Star-Lord insane. But I love
As
how
it should.
quickly that turns and that emotional punch there. And I think that's something that James Gunn does really, really well.
Yeah, I think it's like the casual nature of Kurt Russell's delivery too. Like it's nothing to him, and yet it's everything to us, as the audience and to Peter. And so I feel like that balance, that we see there, that really makes it impactful.
Yeah. I think it also works. I mean, it's a pretty obvious metaphor, but just taking the idea of ego and making the character ego all about that concept, I think is a really smart thing as well that plays out throughout the movie. And it really contrasts very nicely with the Guardians of the Galaxy, which are all about each other and all about supporting each other and being a family. So it is these diametric opposites that you set up in the movie. Oh, what were you going to say, Pete?
That was a huge moment where, like Gamora and Quill are fighting, and he's like, "Why aren't you happy for me? I finally found my family." And she's like, "I thought you already found it," because the Guardians was his kind of found family there, and that was such a powerful, amazing kind of moment there.
This movie, like, she's such a Gamora's such a stabilizing force for Star-Lord. Like, all of their scenes are him being like, "We should date," and she's like, "You have severe emotional problems in every aspect of your life."
But also she's like very quick to fight with her sister to the death. I mean, like, she's also got family issues. It's not like she's coming from a place of perfection.
I don't think she's saying that at all. I just think he's like, let's go out clearly, and she's just like, yo, you're a wreck, and you want me to like come and I'm your family, and that I'm helping you not lose it right now. Then maybe once we can hang out a little bit and have a relationship, then maybe we can date.
I mean, just to throw out, this is swerving onto another character pairing here, but since you mentioned it, Justin, Nebula and Gamora, I think the arc with Nebula is so good in this movie too, and it really uses Karen Gillan so well. She's another one. She is very funny in real life, but in this movie, Nebula is like stealthily funny. The thing where they have the runner of she's really hungry and she just wants to eat this root thing. And then she finally bites it and they keep being like, it's not ripe. And then she bites it and she's like, it's not ripe. And then spits it out. Very funny. The line where, I'm forgetting who it is. I think it's Yondu says when they they destroy the golden people. I just watched this movie and I blanked.
Sovereign.
Sovereign. There you go. And she destroys the sovereign and he says, this is going to hurt a lot. And she says, promises. The way that is great. But the big thing, getting to what Pete was talking about, like with the Nebula Gamora fight thing, Gamora is not really trying to kill her. She's just angry. Yeah. But there's this lovely turn there emotionally towards the end where Nebula lays out for Gamora, this is why I'm so mad at you, because every time you were better than me, Thanos ripped apart out of me, like physically ripped apart out of me. That's what hurts, is that I was in physical pain this entire time. And I think that connection is really good. How do you guys feel about the Nebula Gamora connection throughout this movie? Justin?
I thought it was great. Like there's so many relationships and like contentious relationships at play in this movie, and that one I thought Nebula is such a good character because she's mad all the time, but she's also funny, and so like you're getting both sort of sides of that bouncing back and forth all the time. So when she cuts through that with her honesty to Gamora, it just hits. It just really works, especially when all the other characters are sort of not saying the thing. Like Rocket or Peter Quill, they're all just like, "Look, no, I'm fine." And then when she cuts through like that, she just pops in a really nice way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pete, go ahead.
I very much enjoy the kind of sister relationship they have. I mean, that one moment where, she's like, "I just wanted a sister," was such a great kind of moment that they kind of share. And it is, having a sibling, you do have these kind of like, these drag out fights, and it's just
like if you steal beer from like your sibling's fridge, like there's a price to be paid.
Shut up, dude! Don't say that so loud. I just think it's one of those things where you do kind of ride that line of like wanting to inflict pain, but then if you see them actually get hurt or like that, you kind of like stop and So I really like the portrayal of that in the movie. I thought they did a great job.
Let's talk about Baby Groot, which is one of the other biggest additions of this movie. One thing to clarify, since people still seem to be confused about this, James Gunn has clarified this a million times. This is not Groot. This is the son of Groot. Groot died in the first movie, and then his spores or branches or whatever grew into this new being known as
what?
Baby. There you go. Yes.
Oh man, that's fucking heartbreaking, dude. I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, it's only been 5 years that he's been talking about that nonstop whenever anybody asks. But there you go.
I haven't been asking, so I didn't know. But man,
you just gotta ask him.
That's heartbreaking.
You gotta talk to him directly, and you guys talk so much, so you should bring that up.
Yes. Pete is in charge of the entire DC film slate. We should mention that. Is that?
Yeah. I wish, man.
Yeah,
that's fucked up to say on this.
We would be getting so many Aquaman movies. It would just be like Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Wonder Woman. Just all
no Lobo in there. No Lobo, Pete.
Well, eventually you gotta work up to it.
Space Wolverine.
You gotta emotionally work up.
How about Lobo : Space Wolverine?
Nope.
We're getting a little off track here. Let's talk about Baby Groot, who I think is absolutely delightful and probably the best part of the movie. There's so many great punchlines with Baby Groot here, so many great bits that they get to do. The whole bomb thing at the end with Rocket and Baby Groot, where he just keeps misunderstanding the buttons, is perfect, like comedically perfect.
I mean, we don't get a lot of comedies anymore, just in general in movies, and we definitely don't get comedies that take the time to really lean into a bit that is dumb but funny, and like him getting the button wrong, and then Rocket being like, "Do you have any? Can we get some tape?" And then Star-Lord asks everyone for tape while they're and then they're sitting there. Yeah. It's just great. It's so super funny, and it works every time that Groot then goes back to point at the wrong button. It works every time.
Well, it was a running bit of Groot not understanding and trying to explain to him what you need him to do.
Groot, son of Groot, just to be clear.
Yeah, the son of Groot.
Because Groot died.
Groot died.
Groot is dead, Pete.
All right, yeah, stop.
Pete, when you go outside and see a tree, you know those are also different trees. The trees are different from each other.
What? All right, let's not get so sidetracked here. But yeah, I mean, there's kind of like a sad where Groot's getting picked on, and they're in jail, and they need him to get the fin, and there's like this fun of trying to explain it to Groot, and then the callback with the bomb, and them trying to explain it to Groot. Just hysterical comedy, just absolutely hysterical comedy, especially the part where they're like, "Tell me there's a place in the ship where you guys have severed, toes." And it's like, no, let's never speak of this again.
Yeah. Richard, do you have a favorite Baby Groot bit in the movie?
Probably the bomb moment, for sure. Yeah, it's just a great comedic moment. I love like the attention to detail that like Gunn, gives to these characters. Like I feel like there's such a consistency in how each character's humor kind of works, and so like I really like that like ongoing thread of like Groot not understanding things. Like I feel like it's not just for that single bit. Like you see it build over the course of the film, and I feel like that's one of the things that like Gunn is so great at, is that like he's so good at like the consistency of both the humor and like the emotional aspects of these characters.
Yeah. How do we feel about Teen Groot in the credit sequence? A more controversial Groot, I think.
I like Teen Groot. I think that's a funny bit. I mean, this is very much jumping ahead, but I love that this movie has 5 post-credit sequences.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
The credits, when I was watching it on Disney Plus, and immediately after the first scene with Kraglin came up and was like, skip credits, and I was like, no, I'm not going to skip these. These credits are great.
It's a whole other movie. It's like a short film.
Exactly. There's the post-credit sequences. There's everybody dancing in there. You got what's his name, Games Master, showing up in his first appearance in the credits as well, just dancing because they had Jeff Goldblum available. Great stuff.
Hasselhoff
is in there, exactly.
Don't hassle the Hoff.
Guardians Inferno, very fun. I did want to take it back though to the beginning, because not to stick with Baby Groot. Wait. What?
Wait.
Wait.
If Groot's dead, why is this guy named Groot? It should be a different name. Like if I died and then someone was just like, "Oh yeah, that guy's Pete," and it's not me. I mean, that's kind of messed up, man.
Well, think about it this way: if let's say you died, right? You died saving us, and your hand fell off in the process,
right?
And then a new, small, beardy, angry guy grew out of that. We would probably name that Baby Pete.
Come on, that's fucked up, man. That's really messed up.
Let me also say this:
if person has their own identity, has nothing to do, you know what I mean? Like,
if the only thing that you said is "I am Pete," which is basically true, listen to the podcast, and then another guy who looks very much like you is like, "I am Pete," I'd be like, pretty much the same guy.
Wow, wow, you guys are awful.
Sorry, man. The thing at the beginning of the movie, the opening credits sequence with Baby Groot dancing while the Guardians are all fighting the monster for the Sovereign in the background, is perfect. And beyond everything, I know I was a little cranky about some of the humor stuff in the beginning. I think when James Gunn leans into the visual parts of the movie, they're so good and they're so creative, and beyond so much else that's happening in the MCU, like that dad sequence, just the way that it's staged, the way that it slowly goes around, but you could still keep track of all of the action of everything that's happening at the same time. Or later on when they're doing I think it's 400 jumps through. What, 700?
700, yeah.
700 jumps, and their faces just start to get distended and look crazy.
Yeah, that's fun.
It's very fun. Like the way things are staged is very fun. He has a really good eye for that stuff. It's great. Oh, go ahead, Justin. It looks like you were going to say something.
I was going to say I want to talk about the music while you're talking about that Groot sequence. Like these Guardians movies, I feel like the music is such an important part of them. Great soundtrack. You get Brandy, a great older song as the driver here, and then landing on T for the Tillerman, Cat Stevens song, or Father and Son from T for the Tillerman is the song, and it just great use of using music to communicate the emotions between characters and across all the characters is just really awesome in this movie.
Well, I mean, music is such a huge part of these movies. I mean, and it also ties into his Walkman and the mixtapes, so it is such a huge part. That is a great way to kind of highlight a feeling or something from the characters through the music. So, yeah, I mean, they did a really great job of picking different songs and different music for the first 2 movies that are just bangers. So it was really impressive. One of my favorite parts about the first one, definitely I went out and got the soundtrack, and then the second one as well. So I think it's it shows how much care they're putting into the movies, picking the right music.
And great bit with the Zune towards the end.
Oh,
That's a killer punchline. Let's talk about some other favorite moments from the movie. Richard, are there any other favorite moments that we haven't really covered yet that jump out to you? Things that you remember?
I love Yondu's whistle, the arrow. that whole sequence, just going back to like how Gunn visually constructs these sequences, and along with the music, like it's just like such a cool visual and also musical moment in the movie.
Yeah,
that one shot where they're kind of walking down the bridge and their just bodies falling as the music is playing, and they're just kind of strutting. It's
visually very cool, but I gotta say, Yondu too powerful. The arrow, it just kills everybody. I always had a problem with
it's
this.
a flying arrow.
It kills. He killed 100 people in that sequence.
So I will say,
did.
because you've said this before, I think you said this when we were talking about the first Guardians movie on the podcast. Yeah. And in the first Guardians movie, I don't feel it, because it is like you're waiting to see what he's going to do, what's he going to do, and then he pulls out the arrow and he slaughters everybody, and it's very cool. Here, like you're saying, it looks awesome, and there's this red line going through the aerial view of the entire spaceship is awesome. But yeah, it is so overpowered that it could be like, yeah, I can kill this entire Ravager crew just by whistling a little bit, is bonkers. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, the post-credit tag with Kraglin, where he's trying to figure out the whistle and shoots it directly into Drax's throat. Very funny.
Very fun.
So it's worth it. It's worth it.
But we should talk about, despite the fact that I think Yondu's too powerful in these movies, the emotional impact of Yondu's death is so good. First off, you get the great Mary Poppins joke, which
my God, he's like,
so fun. It's simultaneously a great joke and a great heartfelt moment when he says to Quill, like, is he cool?
Yeah.
And he's like, fuck yeah, Mary Poppins is cool. And I was like, that's real? That's true? Mary Poppins is cool? And he's like, I'm Mary Poppins.
He's like, I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
And you can see, Peter Quill being like, wanting to give this to his real father. And it's just an emotional moment. And then when he sacrificed himself, it was upsetting. I cried. And it's great.
I mean, that whole thing about him being like, you think I control it with, my thoughts. And he was like, I control it with my heart. That got me.
Yeah, the line that got me from Yondu is the one where, oh my gosh, I should have written it down, but the one where he says, he may be your father, but I'm your daddy, but I've always been your daddy.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
just Michael
the way
Rooker
you say it
kills
makes it sound creepy, but he said it in a way that was very touching. And,
that's true.
I'll leave that one off the cameo, I guess. I won't do that.
Yeah,
but
I would argue that's less of a great Rooker. That's not a great Michael Rooker impression.
Oh, really? Huh. All right. Yeah. I'll work on it and I'll bring it back. I'll bring it back. That is great. Oh, one other thing I wanted to throw out for the final battle that I forget about every time I watch this movie, and I love it every time, that Peter Quill is actually not very creative as a guy, and he can come up with anything in the universe, and he just comes up with balls of light, and he's like, I don't know, I'd come up with like a big Pac-Man or something if I could do that. And then in the final battle, when he's attacking Ego, he becomes a gigantic Pac-Man. It's very fun.
Great setup callback.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't we move it on to our vision board and talk about? Oh yeah, you can call it out. Go ahead.
Yeah. One thing I just want to talk about a little bit is Gamora. She has this line about like, what if this, man is your Hasselhoff? And I thought that was a really funny, funny line. And it was just delivered in such a earnest way, but saying such ridiculous things, which I very much think is ridiculous. I mean, the whole taser face bit is ridiculous, and very just fun. It's just there's a lot of really fun small moments that I have are kind of like all are saying bigger things, which I really appreciate about this movie.
I think a great example of that is Kurt Russell saying, "Yes, Drax, I have a penis," which I think is saying something.
Yes, Drax. Yeah.
Oh, and one other thing, because we haven't really talked about the Sovereign too much, who are interesting characters that this could segue us nicely, I think, into the vision board section where we talk about things going forward. But the Sovereign doing that whole drone video game type thing, that's just a fun, again, visual setup, and it's a fun way of doing it with having this antagonistic force that the stakes are like high stakes, low stakes at the same time, where they could kill them, but if they get killed, they're just like, oh man, I lost my game. And
Yeah,
that's
and it
pretty much
makes like video game noises when they
Mhm.
die, which is a real fun effect that they use to kind of like undercut the tension of it, which I thought was cool.
It was
But
very
why don't
cool,
we move? Oh,
yeah,
go.
because
Yeah,
what
why
I
don't we
want to
move?
talk about is what you're saying, Alex.
Yes.
Is we get a little setup for Adam Warlock at the back
Mhm.
end of this movie, and he seems like he's ready to burst right out.
Yeah, he is. So that is in the post-credit sequence. And apparently Marvel was a little worried about this because they thought people were going to think Adam Warlock was going to show up in Infinity War or Endgame. James Gunn was very clear about that. Like, no, that's not going to happen. But he is showing up in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is coming out later next year as we're taping this. And Adam Warlock is going to show up as Will Poulter. Just generally speaking from the movie, Justin, I imagine the thing you're most excited for from Guardians 3 at this point is Adam Warlock.
Yeah, I love Adam Warlock. And I mean, I guess we could say like a trailer just dropped for Volume 3, right?
Yeah.
So we are getting closer to seeing that. I'm very curious. Adam Warlock, to me, is tied up so directly to the Infinity Gauntlet. So I'm curious where they're going to take Adam Warlock in this new movie.
Yeah, I don't know. Richard, what are you looking forward to in Guardians 3?
Definitely Adam Warlock as well. He's just such a cool character and like so like rooted in like this kind of like 70s sci-fi spectacle, but also like a huge inspiration was Jesus Christ Superstar. And so it's just like this kind of like weird like alien, space Jesus. And so I'm really interested to see how they kind of like tackle that. And also like the whole like Magus, this like, backup evil personality. I mean, like there's so much to explore with that character. So I'm really interested to see kind of how he like fits in that. But I'm also really excited to see Layla, the otter who's Rocket's love interest in the comics. I love Rocket and I think that, he deserves some happiness and the trailer definitely like is hinting at like a tragedy, but I wonder if they're just kind of like,
Yeah.
playing their hand because people expect that. But I definitely like to see him, find some happiness. I think he's definitely earned it. And I think that, this whole arc has been like such an interesting one, especially like going back to Gunn's comments on the character when the first movie came out, and he said that Rocket is the character that he most relates to, because he felt broken, growing up, and so Rocket's whole arc is just like dealing with this idea that he's been broken and trying to heal that. And so I'd love to see like more of that healing take place. I just think it's really incredible that like one of the most touching like stories in the MCU is like this little cybernetic raccoon.
Trash Panda.
Yeah, Trash Panda. It's so much worse. Yeah, that was. I agree with all that. I'm really looking for that, but I'm also really looking forward to Gamora and Peter's relationship. Like it's, after the Christmas special, there wasn't any movement on it, and we see him in such a sad place. And in this one, you have so much hope, where she admits that there is something between them. So yeah, I'm really hoping for some good relationship stuff in 3 for sure.
Do you think Adam Warlock is going to be like a swinging 70s Austin Powers type energy?
Oh, he's going to like try to put a CD on a record player and be like, oh,
yeah,
like that.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, they kind of did the Kurt Russell with the 70s hair and kind of, like swinging dude who's been planting his seeds all over the galaxy type of thing. So I don't know if they do that right away.
I am very curious to see how Adam Warlock is going to fit in to all of this, because it does feel like this leftover thing from the Sovereign storyline that they're teeing up. It feels like he could be a main antagonist, but we're also going to be getting one of my absolute favorite Marvel villains in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, who is the High Evolutionary. And it seems like High Evolutionary probably ties into the Rocket story. He is probably going to be the main antagonist here. So how this all gels together, I trust James Gunn enough at this point because he is good at taking these various story threads.
Oh, now you trust him?
I trust him implicitly on everything, except for his plan that he's approved for you to do nonstop Aquaman movies. That's
wow.
It's weird.
Sounds like someone got a James Gunn to your head, Alex, and making you say this stuff.
But I am very excited about that movie. I think it's going to be really good, particularly after the holiday special, as well as this rewatch of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Before we wrap up here, Richard, what do you want to plug? Where should people check you out?
Yeah, so I am on Twitter currently at Richard L. Newby. I also wrote a collection of horror short stories called We Make Monsters Here. That's available on Amazon, digital and paperback, and the link to that is also in my Twitter profile. I cover a bunch of Marvel stuff for THR, so you can find a lot of my stuff there, and I cover horror for Fangoria.
Awesome. Richard, thank you so much for coming on. And for all of you out there, if you'd like to support us, patreon.com/comicbookclub. Also do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to Crowdcast and YouTube. Come hang out. We would love to chat with you about the MCU, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice to subscribe, listen, and follow the show at Marvel Vision Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. Until next time, stay marvelous.
Now, Alex, I paid $70 for that Drax laugh, so I'm just waiting.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming. I'll do it right now. Ha 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 ha.
Worth every penny.